Hello and welcome to another Spark AR tutorial. This video is going to be a little bit different because instead of actually going through developing our own effect, we're actually going to be implementing some community patches in order to change our look and feel. So today we're going to be talking about color grading, and color grading is an important step across all forms of media. It can drastically change the way that your filter or piece of storytelling is conveyed to the audience. Now, the way this is typically done is using what's known as a lookup table, which is a reference of how colours are represented within that scene. So it controls how reds, greens, blues, and every colour in between is portrayed. That is how, for example, you get the kind of Sin City look, where you can kind of pick out certain colours and change other colours into their corresponding desired result. So what we're looking at today is we're looking at two community patches, may I say, because I'm going to be using two for this effect, where basically every time we tap our screen we can change our effects. So for example, this one is actually only going to pick out reds in our scene. We can do an invert and some other filmic styles. So the way this was achieved was we basically went on to the Spark AR community, which is a Facebook group, and currently Spark AR itself doesn't support active LUT tables, so you can't import a .cube image or file, for example. So instead, the way we have to do this is we have to actually force Spark AR to be able to take in a texture value and a LUT lookup table value, and then merge the two together to control our material output. And thankfully, a lot of this hard work has been already done for us. Thanks to this fellow here, a Josh Beckwith. He basically is a kind of master with this sort of stuff and has created a series of patches which you can find on his GitHub repository and on the Spark AR Facebook community. But what we're looking at today is the LUT patch, which is our lookup table patch. So I'm not going to go through everything with it because he has already, as you can see, created his own super useful guide on how to go about doing this. And I'd also encourage you to possibly throw some money his way to support his fantastic work he's doing, because this would be an absolute chore. And if I just look at the patch that he's created here and expand it just to show you how much work has gone into this, you can just see how many values and extractions have had to be done to offset and import this effect to work. So what he has done is saved the community a massive amount of time. So I'll be using that. Another one I'm using is one that is created by this person here. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that. I'm not very good with saying names as it is. But basically, he has compiled a list of AR patches which can affect things like how colour is dealt with, how face smoothing is dealt with, etc. So it's bundling and batching together all these quite complex patches into a little neat bundle. And the one we're sort of focusing on is this one here, the texture 4 option picker, which is what you can see I've got in my scene here, which basically means every time I tap my screen, it's toggling between these 4 texture states. And just to expand this one, again, you can see this is quite involved, not quite as complex as the one, but still has some stage to it. And if I actually open up one of these texture options, it's actually a batch within a batch. So yeah, there we go. So all I've done is I obviously downloaded those 2 patches. I then simply dragged those patch files into my project, and what you'll be given is when you open up this LUT patch zip file, you'll find that we have a folder of textures. So Josh has already included a wide selection of effects that we could play with. So we've got some camera filter styles there and some more generic color effects you can see here. But what we're going to do is, if we want to create our own lookup table, we need to capture this neutral one here. I'm going to open this up in my color channel mixer, and I can now, as you can see, I can adjust how many reds in my scene. I could adjust the greens. I could even use presets if I really wanted to. So that's one way I could do it, or I could do this via a graph. So I can go to curves, and I can actually adjust each channel individually on its own curve. And so you can sort of see how I can adjust the values in more, like so. And then obviously once I've done that, I just save this as a PNG or JPEG, then bring this back into my project, and I simply dragged my effect or my image into my patch editor, took the rgba value and linked that into my fast color LUT patch. So I'm going to go through this quickly just from a new project, because I appreciate what I've explained there may not necessarily make sense to some of you. If you already understand what I'm saying, feel free to just end the video there and give me a like, comment, or sort of subscribe if you really want to. But I'm just going to go through how this was created very quickly for those who may not be as familiar. So I'm just going to create a new project, like so. And the first thing I did was I just added a rectangle, and I made this the width and height of my scene. This is just to show it working. I would apply this to, let's say I had a face mesh, I'd want to apply the effect to each material separately, because obviously you wouldn't control all materials, and then it wouldn't like take the entire thing. That's what you'd use a shader for, but we're not using shaders today, we're just using lookup tables. So I'm just going to go to my camera, extract my camera texture, and go to my rectangle, create a new material for that rectangle, select that material that's been created and choose my camera texture. And now I should have the video overlaying itself. Change its shader type to flat, so it's not affected by the in-scene colours, by the lights in our scene. I then downloaded those two aforementioned patches, so let's just go to the patches here, and I'm just going to simply use the fast color LUT. You can use either one you want. I'm just going to use this one. My desires, there we go. So I brought that into here, and you can notice it's imported as a patch. I'm now going to go and tried using QMaps earlier for something else. So I'm just going to go to this other one here, and I'm going to choose the 4 option picker, and a link to where to get both of these will be in the description below. So now if I go to view, show patch editor, and I was to right click on my patch editor, you notice we have this new option called saved patches. So these are any patches that we've imported that aren't native to Spark AR. So I'm just going to simply import the fast color LUT patch into my patch editor, and right click and also add my 4 option picker, like so. I now want to link my 4 option picker texture to the texture of my fast color LUT, and then select my material, select the texture arrow, like so, and then link my materials diffuse texture to the color for my fast color LUT, like so. Now we will have an error message at this point because we haven't got a LUT table being referenced, so we will need to fix that. And in fact, I just noticed I've actually made a little mistake, so let me just open up that project again. There we go. So what I've actually done is I'm meant to link the texture to the LUT, not to the texture, because the texture is actually going to come from elsewhere, because we're controlling the LUTs, not the textures, using this picker. It makes sense, trust me. So with our texture, we're going to link our texture file to our camera's texture in this case. So let me just go back to here. So I'm going to select my camera texture and drag that into my patch editor, link the rgba to the texture file like so. It will come up with an error message again because we currently don't have any LUT tables for it to be referenced to for the texture here to work. So in order to do that, I'm going to simply find some of my textures. So for this option picker to work, it requires 4, but the other option picker that you can get through the download link, you can have 1 or 2, so bear that in mind. For this, I'm using 4 because I want to be able to toggle between more than one effect. So I'm going to pick just 4 random ones. So I'm going to pick that, and let's say that. Bring those into my project. There we go. So I should have these 4 different LUT tables. I simply now drag each of these into my patch editor. Just tidy this up a bit. Each of those in my patch editor. So we should have them in like so. Should be these orange boxes. And the last one. And now I'm going to simply link up each of these rgba values to a different texture point. So texture 1, texture 2, texture 3, and texture 4. And now if I right click in my patch editor, I'm going to add a screen tap, but this could equally be an object tap. If I was to have a object in my scene that I wanted to be able to be a trigger like a button, I'm just going to use a screen tap for this. And then every time I tap the screen, I want this to increase a counter. And then this counter will increase my option counter there. And I'm going to change the maximum count to be 4 because there are 4 filters. So now when I go and simulate the touch up here, every time I tap the screen, it will now change between one of these 4 different LUT values here. So you can do this to obviously apply to any material in your scene. So as we can see here, we're just taking the camera texture here. But if you wanted to use your own textures and not use a camera texture, you could apply this to 3D models. You could apply this to face meshes. You can apply this to a wide variety of things. But yeah, I just thought I wanted to highlight these 2 very valuable patches to you. There is obviously a lot more out there. But these do save a considerable amount of time. Some things you should do is, as Josh has already mentioned in his own GitHub repository, you should really turn compression off on your textures for this effect to work best. And I also personally, I find turning color encoding to sRGB better because it gives you more rich, deep colors. But for optimization reasons, you may want to keep it linear, depending on obviously your desired output and obviously the performance impact it could have. Some people also find turning the filtering to off to be quite useful. But again, this is very much on a case-by-case basis. So I hope that this highlight of 2 fantastic community patches inspires you to think about how you could affect your look and emotive feel of your piece just by adjusting the colors in a very simple and user intuitive manner. Thank you for watching, and I hope to be able to bring you more content soon. Goodbye.